he was talking inappropriately with a minor. Where I truly believe this scumbag needs to be banned off of the platforms that he's on.
Comes out, and all of a sudden it's the #1 thing, and look at my clip, let me tweet this out, let me tweet this out, look at this hot. It all looks the same to me!
Dr. Disrespect is watching his image crack in a way you almost never see online. This wasn't one sudden mistake. It's something that's been building for years, and now it's coming apart piece by piece right in front of everyone. He went from being untouchable at the top of streaming to someone people are openly questioning across the internet.
I don't know who's really going to support him at this point. Like, what kind of person is going to watch Dr. Disrespect? If you watch him at this point, you just have to be coping.
And once a shift like that starts, it doesn't stay quiet. It spreads fast and gets louder by the day. The noise builds, attention spikes, and suddenly everyone is trying to figure out what's really going on. The real turning point wasn't just the allegations, it was how he handled things when the pressure started closing in. To understand how this spiraled, you have to go back to June 2020, when Dr. Disrespect wasn't just popular, he was one of the defining faces of Twitch. He built a persona that stood out, keeping his real identity separate from that larger-than-life character. That confidence, that control, that carefully managed image gave him an edge most streamers couldn't match. But that same control became a weakness the moment things went off script. When he was suddenly banned from Twitch, no warning, no explanation, that polished image started slipping almost instantly. And the silence didn't calm anything down, it made everything louder. It turned the situation into one of the biggest mysteries the streaming world had ever seen. Viewers didn't just lose a creator, they lost answers. And when there's no clear explanation, people start filling in the gaps themselves, fast and messy. His final moments on stream made it even more unsettling. There was a clear shift in his energy, like something changed in real time.
We'll get through this, Champions Club. I know it's a tough. Life's weird right now. We'll get through this, okay? And
Hey, Christopher.
fuck.
You gonna try?
And people noticed immediately. The chat filled with confusion, concern, and nonstop guessing, with everyone trying to piece together what they were seeing without any real context. At that point, nobody could confirm what actually happened, but the reaction alone said a lot. Even the strongest position can fall apart quickly when information disappears. Still, his return on YouTube showed just how strong his influence really was. His first stream pulled massive numbers, and he leaned into the idea that he'd been removed without any real explanation. That approach worked. It gave him room to rebuild quickly and regain control of the narrative, like nothing had slowed him down.
Why did you get banned? Guess what? I want you to look me in the fucking eyes when I say this. We still have no idea.
For the next 4 years, the ban stayed unresolved in public. No answers, no closure, just a constant question hanging over everything. And during that time, he didn't slow down. He kept growing, pulling in millions of subscribers and staying one of the most recognizable faces in streaming. But unresolved stories don't disappear. They sit in the background, waiting for the right moment to explode. And that moment came in June 2024, when a former Twitch employee stepped forward claiming the ban was tied to questionable messages and an alleged attempt to meet at TwitchCon. That's when things took a sharp turn. The claim didn't come with hard proof, but it didn't need to. It introduced a specific version of events into a space that had been full of uncertainty for years, and that alone shook everything. The reaction split instantly. Some people treated it like confirmation, while others pushed back because there was no solid evidence behind it. But what really mattered wasn't just the accusation, it was how Dr. Disrespect responded when the pressure hit. Instead of giving a clear, direct denial to those specific claims, he relied on legal-style wording, saying no wrongdoing was acknowledged and that everything had already been settled. That decision created problems almost immediately. In situations like this, being vague doesn't help. It usually makes things worse. When the accusation is detailed, the response needs to match that level of clarity. By not addressing it directly, the focus moved away from the claim itself and locked onto his credibility. People weren't just listening to what he said, they were paying attention to what he didn't say. His follow-up response tried to reinforce his position, again stressing that nothing illegal happened and that the situation had already been resolved, but it still felt indirect. That tone didn't clear anything up. It only deepened the divide and kept the tension high. Supporters saw it as proof he was staying within legal limits, while critics saw it as sidestepping the core issue. And right there, things stopped being just online discussion and started turning into real-world consequences. Midnight Society, the game studio he co-founded, announced they were cutting ties with him. That decision hit harder than any online reaction. This wasn't just noise anymore. It was a move from people directly connected to the situation. When a company distances itself that quickly, it sends a clear signal. It tells everyone the risk isn't just speculation, it's something real. What made it even more intense was the timing. The announcement dropped while he was live streaming, and viewers believed he was seeing it unfold in real time. That pulled the stream itself into the story, with people watching closely as everything shifted right in front of them.
You know how we run things here.
At that point, it wasn't just speculation anymore. It was unfolding live. The focus moved away from defending his name and toward reacting to consequences already in motion.
When I say step away, I think either have to relay this to the Midnight Society, but maybe I step away from there too. Just completely remove myself from the scene. It's what I need to do.
Then came the statement that changed everything. In late June 2024, Dr. Disrespect released a message finally addressing the situation directly. He framed it as taking responsibility where he could, apologizing to his community and the people around him, while also confirming he stepped down from Midnight Society. The tone felt completely different this time, more serious, more direct. Instead of brushing things aside, this message leaned into acknowledgement, and that shift carried real weight. For the first time since 2020, that gap of uncertainty started to close. What had been a long-running mystery was now being reshaped through his own words. Speculation didn't feel like guessing anymore. It started feeling tied to something real, and that alone changed how people looked at everything that came before. The narrative didn't drift, it snapped into place, and people reacted instantly. At that point, it stopped being about just one creator. It became a clear example of how influence actually works online. Because it's never just about views or numbers. It's about trust, control, and how fast everything can flip when that trust gets shaken. Audiences don't just watch. They buy into a version of you they believe is real and consistent. But the moment new information forces that image to shift, the fallout doesn't wait. It hits fast and it hits hard. Dr. Disrespect didn't lose his audience overnight. That's not what happened. What he lost was control over how that audience sees him. And once that control slips, everything built on top of it starts shifting with it. That gap is massive. It changes everything. For years, he managed the narrative through performance, distance, and only showing what he wanted people to see.
I got no idea what that was.
But once outside information started driving the story, the balance flipped almost instantly. At that point, the size of his platform didn't matter. The foundation under it had already shifted. The statement that followed didn't just add context, it reshaped the timeline. For years, people kept asking why he was banned from Twitch, and that silence actually worked in his favor. It gave him space to stay vague and stay in control. But once former Twitch employees started speaking out and pointing to specific claims, that layer of mystery disappeared fast. Now, he wasn't answering a question anymore. He was facing direct claims, and he had to respond in his own words. He confirmed there were private exchanges with someone much younger back in 2017. He described those conversations as starting casual, but said they crossed boundaries at times. At the same time, he insisted there was no intent behind it and no illegal actions took place. He made it clear no photos were shared, no meeting ever happened, and no criminal charges were filed. Legally, his position held, but on a moral level, things felt far more complicated, and people picked up on that immediately. What stood out wasn't just what he admitted, it was how he said it. The statement tried to draw a line between what's legal and what people feel is right.
As you guys know, I have a beautiful family and a wife and kid, and I want to be transparent that I've been unfaithful. And
he admitted those conversations should never have happened, framing it as a mistake driven by poor judgment rather than something intentional. That line didn't land the same for everyone, and the way it was delivered only made people look at it more closely. At the same time, he pushed back against the labels being put on him, rejecting more extreme takes. But that balance didn't land the way it was likely intended to. When someone confirms a key part of an allegation people have argued about for years, everything shifts instantly. The conversation stops being about whether something happened. Now it's about how serious it was and how it should be judged. In that kind of space, nuance disappears fast. People don't stay neutral, they pick a side. Things got even messier because of how the statement changed after it was posted. Edits to the wording, especially around key details, blew up almost immediately. People weren't just reading, they were tracking every change in real time, and that created a new layer of distrust. Even updates that may have been meant to clarify things started looking like moves to control the narrative instead of being fully open. From there, everything blew past his core audience. The statement went viral within hours, pulling in tens of millions of views and dragging attention from all over the platform. Commentary channels, analysts, and long-form creators jumped in fast.
Doc actually edited this statement twice. So initially, he posted it with the word minor in it, saying, were there messages with an individual minor? The answer is yes. But then shortly after he published it, he edited the word minor out of it. So he removed that. He redacted it like a fucking CIA document, trying to bury it, just snapping it out of existence. So then it read, were there messages with an individual? The answer is yes. But people were quick to notice the edit. And you can actually check edit history on Twitter, which I didn't know you can do, but you could clearly see that the original no longer matched the current one because he took the word minor out. So when people caught him red-handed, he just edited it one more time to put the word minor back in.
Breaking everything down piece by piece. They didn't just focus on the admission, they dug into inconsistencies, timing, and the bigger picture behind it all.
Tries to close this statement with a really hard, cheesy 80s action movie one-liner. They want me to disappear. Yeah, fucking right. Granny shifting, not double clutching like you should. You're lucky you didn't blow the welds off the intake. I'm not leaving. It's really kind of ridiculous to put that there with accusations like this.
This is where many creators get caught off guard. When you lose control of your narrative, it doesn't just spread. It gets picked apart by people whose job is to question it. And once that process starts, slowing it down becomes almost impossible.
Yo, checking in. I'm seeing everything on Twitter, and I read through Doc's tweet, and in that very tweet, and it went weird sometimes, you know, and look, just to be blunt and straightforward, man, that's inexcusable. It's unacceptable, right? No excuse for something like that.
Even people who had defended him before started stepping back. And that's a major turning point in any situation like this. Support from peers can steady things early, but when that support fades or flips, it sends a clear signal that this has moved into something bigger. At that point, it's no longer just a debate. It starts looking like a reputational risk just to be connected to it. That shift is huge, because once people start thinking like that, distancing becomes the default move.
Buddy, this is the Act Man here, and this is my final verdict on the Dr. Disrespect situation. As you might have seen, I've been pretty vocal about this on Twitter, and Doc has finally given us the truth. At long last, we know why he was banned, and it's not good. So first, I want to read this part where he says, it's the most important part of his tweet. Were there Twitch Whisper messages with an individual minor back in 2017? The answer is yes. These were casual mutual conversations that sometimes lean too much in the direction of being inappropriate. I've seen enough to catch a predator to know when somebody is using language to soften the blow, to downplay what actually happened. You know, it's a strategy where you can admit something you did that was terrible, but you can maybe make it seem not as bad as it actually is.
At the same time, the audience response became far more unified. Earlier, people were split between waiting for proof and assuming the worst. But after the admission, that gap closed fast. The conversation moved away from uncertainty and straight into judgment. And online judgment moves faster than facts ever can. That's what made this situation hit even harder. It exposed the gap between legal outcomes and public perception in a much more raw way. Dr. Disrespect kept emphasizing that there were no criminal charges and no legal wrongdoing found. But the internet doesn't run on legal definitions. It runs on perception and emotion. It's driven by perceived intent, personal values, and emotional reactions. And in that space, it takes far less to damage a reputation. A man in his late 30s having questionable conversations with someone much younger, no matter how it's framed legally, is enough for people to see him in a completely different light. That kind of shift doesn't need a courtroom. It plays out in public opinion, and it moves fast. Once that perception flips, it becomes the filter for everything that follows. It doesn't matter how strong the brand used to be or how many years went into building it, that new image takes over almost instantly. The consequences didn't take long to show either. Reports started surfacing from multiple directions, each one adding pressure to an already unstable situation. Platforms reacted, and his standing inside the YouTube ecosystem started shifting almost immediately.
At the end of the day, this is just a gross thing to be doing. And there is no defense for this kind of behavior. And I firmly believe, like, as, you know, even on YouTube, like, this guy shouldn't even be streaming anywhere. Like, what is proven is if you are interacting in a negative fashion with anybody that is a minor, you are not to be trusted on any social media platform whatsoever.
The numbers told the story in real time. Subscriber drops, weaker support, constant scrutiny stacking up fast. And behind that, a bigger pattern started becoming clear. Influence online isn't just about growth, it's about holding steady when things get tested. A lot of creators know how to grow under pressure, but far fewer know how to hold on to trust when their audience starts questioning who they're really watching. Dr. Disrespect built his career on control, consistency, and a tightly managed persona, but that same structure left almost no room for mistakes. Once the perception under that image started to crack, everything built on top of it became unstable. When your brand is built around a character, people still expect the real person behind it to meet certain standards. And the moment that expectation breaks, that separation between character and reality stops protecting you. It starts working against you. What's happening here isn't just fallout from one moment. It's the result of a long-running narrative finally getting an answer. Just not the one people expected, or one they could brush off. The longer something stays unanswered, the harder it hits when it finally comes out. And in this case, that impact is unfolding in real time, with everyone watching it step by step. Whether he comes back and tries to rebuild almost feels secondary now. The real question is whether the foundation behind his influence can still exist in the same form. Because once trust gets reshaped at this level, it doesn't reset. It becomes something else entirely. That kind of shift is hard to reverse. And if you zoom out, this isn't just about one creator. It reflects a bigger pattern. The biggest names online are also the most exposed, and when perception flips, everything accelerates. The larger the audience, the faster it spreads, and the more controlled the image was, the harder the backlash hits when that control breaks. Dr. Disrespect didn't just lose momentum, he lost alignment between who people thought he was and what they now believe is true. And on today's internet, that kind of gap is one of the hardest things to recover from. Once it breaks, it rarely goes back to what it was. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to like the video so it can reach more people and share your take. Do you think a creator can recover after a shift like this? Or once trust is broken, is it over? Does the audience move on for good?